Here.
Daniels is present. If you would please turn on your microphone so that we have that available for those to hear. Let the record reflect that there is a quorum of the WEDC board present, and so we can conduct business this evening. If you would all, let's rise for our pledge to the American and Texas flag, and then we'll get Jim Hollowell to lead us in an invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Father, we thank you for this day and all your blessings to us, and we thank you for this opportunity to come together as a community and deliberate and make decisions on what's good for the whole of Winnsboro. We ask that you give us the wisdom and knowledge we need to make the right decisions. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. At this time, we will have staff reports, and on the agenda, 4.1 is our Main Street program. Brenda Buck is here this evening to give us her report.
How are y'all doing tonight?
Doing good.
So I understand that last time when I was gone, you guys had a pretty lively discussion, and it long and involved and great, and I just have to say thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I appreciate everybody that was here. I appreciate the discussion that you guys went through and the questions and everything that happened. So with that said, is there anything that you need to ask from that particular time, or even looking at this report from this week? Is there something in particular? There were a lot of numbers in this particular month's report.
I guess let's just clarify that the total expenditure of the project that we are looking at for utilities and improvements to the area is a 180 budget, 90 of that being grant funds, and then a match from the WEDC of the additional funds?
That's it.
Okay.
You're correct.
Perfect.
You're correct. And it's not due until the 31st of August of next year. We have 1 year to complete the project, which, you know, it's a little daunting sometimes when you think about that, because grants are usually a little bit longer, but hey.
It is. Could we get just progress reports maybe each month?
You could.
Just with yours, here's where we are, we have started, or we haven't started, or this is where we are, so that we can keep track of that timeline, because we will blink and August will be here.
Yeah, definitely. If I can start that probably in January or February. The only reason why I say that is because we have a lot of events until now in December, and more than likely,
nothing will be.
No dirt is going to be dug until.
No problem.
After all that.
Thank you.
But good.
Okay.
So with the report, I don't know if y'all noticed some of those numbers that were down at the bottom. With the amount of people that came through the town last year, and the amount of funds that were spent in downtown last year in private and public funds. There were over 38,000 people that came through downtown last year. That's a pretty significant number. And the reason why that's a significant number for us is because that's the highest number we've ever had, even pre-COVID. It's 27% higher than our pre-COVID numbers. So we had a lot of people that came through. Looking at those numbers and kind of distributing them out into locals and people that visited into the town, it was a 51-49 split. 51% were out of town, 49% in town. That number is also significant because most of the time, ever since 2017, when I began tracking that particular number, it was like a 60-30 split, 27-63 split, something like that, with most of those being out of town. We have now moved closer to locals and out-of-towners. I don't know about you, but I like that. I do. I like that. We do know that out-of-towners usually spend a little bit more money because when you travel to another location, any place that's over an hour, you typically spend a little bit more because you don't know when you'll be back. So you stop at the grocery store, you stop and you get gas, you stop and you do your clothes shopping and all that good stuff. So with 51% of people in town, and you have 38,000 people that came into town, if you split that number up, and let's say that $60 was left from just each one of those people, that's a lot of money that was left here in our town. So, pretty excited about that. That really kind of helps the tax base. At some point, we would really like to move into a position to know what that tax base really is. It takes a program to kind of run that. And
Is that the geocoding, geofencing?
geofencing, unfortunately, that costs money, you know. But I think in the long run, it would really pay off. It's $25,000 to get that program for us. Something to think about, maybe in the future. But anyway, kind of excited about that. I don't know if you saw that $1.8 million in private funding that was spent last year within our district. I've got to say that's quite a bit of funding too. When you break that down between our private and our public funding in ROI, $275,000 was from the city, $1,000 was spent on farmers market, $175,000 was spent in the match from the Texas Commission on the Arts grant. So public funding. When you look at that combined together, and actually I'm going to have to pull this out again just to be sure that I get the right number because don't want to get that wrong. That's 555% of ROI. Yeah, I would say that was pretty good return on investment last year. So I hope when we're standing here next year that we have the same story. We have a lot of people that have looked at some of the buildings. We had 6 buildings that were vacant for purchase, kind of thing. We've got the Winnsboro newspaper building, that's one of them. Of course, Lottie's, I'm not sure where she is at the moment. It was on the market. I don't know what it is at this moment, but that was another one. You have Neighbors Insurance Building, that's on Main Street also. And you also have the Technologies, the old Technologies building. That's 312 North Main. Yeah, that's also for sale. With those structures for sale, we're sitting at about 8% in our district, and square footage wise, that's available for purchase. So, I don't know, kind of like that number too, but we'll see what that looks like next year.
What about occupancy? I guess really more important is the unoccupied space that
Yes.
actually is owned, but no one
is actually moving in it.
utilizing
Yeah, so
and generating activity,
yes,
projects,
we have 17%.
tax revenue.
Mhm. You're exactly right.
Tax.
17% of our buildings right now are sitting purchased, owned, and no activity. So we do have room to expand there too. So if we can expand that number and our purchase number, that'd be pretty good. Yeah. So were there any other questions y'all can think of? There's just a few. We'll have the final report for this year in January. They'll send us that whole total number of our stuff. So hopefully first part of next year we can give you that number too.
And our certification runs through designation?
The designation, they make those designations in the middle of the summer. And it's for the previous year because that reporting is due, part of it's due in December, the work plan, and then the rest of it's due in January. With that said, then they make that determination and they usually put that out, they usually put it out about April. This year it wasn't until about June-ish, if I'm remembering correctly. It was a little bit later. It's usually earlier in the year, but that's from the previous year. So we have been certified for our last year. And then
It's just a 1 year
it's just a 1 year.
designation?
Mhm. Yeah. And starting in January, they're completing the process of the state and national alignment in which they will be really kind of looking a lot closer at the main streets. So we'll see what that looks like come next year with all that reporting, that good stuff. But you know, we've been sitting really well the last few years. I really embrace it because it's good to look at these things and to ask those questions. And if there's places we need to improve, because there's always places we need to improve, then we can look at that point. So it'll be good.
Any other questions for Brenda?
I appreciate y'all.
If not, thank you. Because that's a
Thanks.
report. It doesn't take a motion or a second or an approval, so we appreciate that. Moving on to item 5 on our agenda for comments, concerns from citizens. It's time for the public to address the WDC board on any subject. However, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the board from discussing issues which the public has not been given 72 hours notice. Is there anyone who would like to address us? If you would, fill out a speaker card, and if you will get it to ladies, we will allow you your 3 minutes at the podium. Do we have anyone that has? Okay. We will move on to item 6, the consent items, minutes 6.1 from our September meeting. I had a chance to review those previously. So when you're ready, we will entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Open for discussion. Any comments, discussion? All those for approving the minutes as presented?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? If not, motion carries. Okay, moving on to item 7, our action items for the meeting. The first item is consider a funding request from HYPE, Helping Young People Excel, for one of their annual events. Is there someone from HYPE that would like to address us? If you would, make your way to the podium, and we will need you to state your name and address.
And on that, I will not be saying any comments.
My name is Siobhan Duffy, and I'm at 112 Orange Street in Winnsboro, Texas, 75494. And I
Thank you,
am with
Siobhan.
HYPE.
And welcome. We're glad to have you here this evening.
Thank you. I came, and I don't know if you have it in front of you, I submitted a budget sheet of what our advertising will look like for MLK this year. And this year we've decided to expand that. Normally we just keep it toward the local news, just here in Winnsboro, and then we pass out a few flyers. But this year we've decided to expand that. So if you'll see, we're going to decide to do a full page ad with Winnsboro, Mount Vernon, and then the next crossroads has to do with Bowie County, Titus, Smith. They do all of that, Camp County. And then I've spoken with KLTV this year to do a banner that they will run for 2 weeks. And as you can see, the cost of that is around $1,000. And the way they're going to do that digital banner is every time you pull up the app, you'll see it at the top. And when you click on it, it'll take you to the HYPE website, and then it'll take you to the event. And then also we've partnered with Mac Jordan, which is J&M Signs, to do our banners. And we've gotten with Mr. Willis. I think his is called Flipping Signs. I think that's what it's called. And he's done our signs, just an idea this year of what we're going to do. I don't know if y'all want to pass that around. But we're just coming to the board this year to see if we can get a little bit more help as far as advertising.
Your budget was a little over $7,000?
Yeah, our budget was a little over. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us maybe a little bit about your event and the activities that you have planned?
Yeah, normally we host it every year. This year we're going to do it again. We're going to have the parade first at 10:30. It's going to start at First Baptist Church, and then we march all the way down to MLK Park, and we serve a free barbecue dinner. We have local musicians. We have musicians from Tyler all over. We basically just talk a little bit about, give you some history of MLK Day, and then we also do the Ernestine Starling Award, where we honor anybody in the community that has worked. I don't know if many people know Miss Starling. She was a teacher.
She was my second grade teacher.
Yeah, she was a teacher in this community for a long time, and we want to make sure we continue to uphold her name. And this year we're going to have a donation, kind of like a bucket, Because this year, we're targeting it toward the, I don't know if anybody's been to the Rock Building. We're trying to restore that Rock Building to use it as Hype's headquarters, but also like a resource center. Teach children how to do resumes, how to fill out most people don't even know how to do a FAFSA for scholarships, things like that. You know, teach you how to get a job, how to dress for a job. That's what we're trying to target, is to put that, any money that we raise, we put it back into that building to restore it.
Okay. And about how many people typically attend the event? Do you keep count of
We
your
used to,
attendance?
pre-COVID, we used to get about 250 to 300 people that would come. And then after COVID, it kind of dropped down, I would say, to about 125. Because the year 2020, 2019, we did a stew cook-off thing, and we just did a drive-by because of COVID. But we had quite a few. And then we even had the football team come out and help us serve from the high school. But mostly, I think we have about 125. But we're hoping this year to get back into our 500 people range. And I've also spoken, hopefully, this year. The band was supposed to come last year, but I think some of them, the band director and all of them caught COVID the day before the event. So nobody was there to lead the band. But I've spoken this year, because I don't know if many people know, we give 2 scholarships away at the school, and we give 2 scholarships away at Hawkins High School. And this year, I've talked to Miss Morton. We're hoping to have their band, as well as Mount Vernon's band and Pittsburgh's band, marching with us in the parade. So we're excited about that this year.
Hopefully they will bring their entourages with them.
Yes, hopefully so.
Their supporters
Right.
to come into town and to celebrate. And
Yeah, and to maybe stop at some of the, local businesses and spend some money.
Jim, do you have any questions? Andrea, do you?
I just wanted to make a comment. Last year I was fortunate enough to be asked to come to the MLK. And if you've never been, I would encourage you to attend. One of the things that just totally stood out, and forgive me, but I cannot think of the man's name that read the speech from MLK, and it honestly just gave me chills.
Oh, Bishop Traylor, yeah.
Yes, and so if you've not been fortunate enough to attend this event, I would highly recommend it to everyone. And I was very fortunate to be asked to attend, and I was glad I did, and I've obviously been able to be part of this year as well. But it's a very good thing, I think, for the people of Winnsboro. And it's just, like I said, when it was just a nice day, the wind was blowing, and when he's a very good speaker, and when he stood up and read that, I mean, it just really honestly gave you chills.
Yeah.
And I still think, I think of that often, and I also tell people about it.
Oh, awesome.
That if you've never even, and to be honest, I had never heard the whole speech. And so that was even my first time hearing it, the whole complete thing. And you need to listen. I mean, it's very heartwarming. It's very sincere, and I would really just stress the importance of everyone attending and taking part in this celebration.
Is your target market the Winnsboro audience? Or I know you're planning on a lot of expensive advertising outside of Winnsboro.
Yeah, we
And so are you thinking it's going to be a good return on dollars spent? Because $5,000 is a significant portion of our advertising that we have available. And I know that's more than even some of the events that we have been able to support that bring in thousands of visitors from outside. So are you thinking that this will draw considerably more people than just the Winnsboro local crowd coming into Winnsboro to celebrate and attend the event?
Yes, we're trying to, as we say, broaden our horizons now because we've kept it local for so long, and I think that's due to not advertising as well as we should have done. And so my goal this year is to try to get hype back on the market, to put it in your face, remind you, hey, we're here, we give scholarships, our town is here, we have plenty of things to offer, we've got new restaurants, we've got all this new stuff that you can come take part in. Because I know a lot of people that I work with and people my age say there's nothing to do in Winnsboro, but there's plenty to do if you just get out there and make it known. And I know with this event, I'm hoping to broaden that more. And I even can say this year, when we did our scholarship for Winnsboro, we didn't have not one student apply, not one student. But I had a ton of students from Hawkins when we decided to branch out there. So I'm thinking if we kind of move the train a little bit further than Wood County, maybe we can get a little bit more people in the town.
Any other questions or thoughts? Whether to fund in full, in part?
I honestly would have to agree. I think this has, because there has been no advertisement, that it has become a Winnsboro thing. And it's really unfortunate because it has so much to offer. I do think if it was the Horizons one and more advertisement was done, I think the attendance would be extremely high. I think the problem is we just never asked to help provide any type of advertising support to HOP. And then also, COVID kind of backed it up a little. So I think we're trying, like you said, move the train forward to bring knowledge, first of all, of what it is. And then second, that it is fortunate to witness and to be there and to be part of it. I had no really part at all, but I was extremely proud to be there that day. So I think if more people are even aware of what is taking place, I mean, honestly, I knew it went on, but I had never been there. And so I was surprisingly pleased of how well it was run and things of that sort. So I think the advertisement would help them to be able to get back on the right track after COVID and to go forward.
Any comments or questions, Jim? Okay. Is there a motion on the floor?
Is a request for 5,000?
Yes, their advertising budget is
Right.
$7,050, if I remember correctly. My iPad is not working, so I
Yeah,
apologize.
it's $7,050, yes,
But
ma'am.
I did read, see, I knew it to the penny.
I move that we approve funding of the MLK and Hike for $5,000 as requested.
We have a motion on the floor for $5,000 to approve the advertising dollars for the hype celebration as requested.
I would like to second that motion.
And we have a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? If not, that motion carries.
Thank you. And then if you don't mind, I'm going to give y'all a brochure.
Thank you.
from that
Yeah.
So that you can read a little bit more.
We will need copies of your receipts and everything so that we can reimburse that funding. And then we would also encourage you to come back and celebrate with us after the event
Yes, ma'am.
and toot your own horn a little bit and tell us
Okay.
what great things you did and how many folks came and the success of your advertising and drawing those people in so that we can celebrate with you your success of the event.
All right, thank you.
Okay? So we look forward to having you back with lots of good news. Okay, the next item to be considered is an application grant for the Winnsboro Health Senior Services, and I believe Dawn is here to represent that. So if you come forward, state your name and your address, please.
My name is, My name is Dawn Petty. My address is 1567 West FM 852 in Winnsboro, 75494.
Actually, you'll be speaking on two different grants.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct? So we will take the first one, which is the Winnsboro Health Senior Services Grant. And that is a request for a grant in the amount of $2,283.57 to be used for senior-focused activities, crafts, and educational purposes. And there is, in your packets, of financials that you received, some receipts from, or I guess purchase orders from Amazon.
Oh, it hasn't been purchased yet, but those were just some ideas of things that we were wanting to get.
Okay. I guess tell us first, I guess, a little bit about what all y'all
Sure.
have going on there. Such a transformation there on Main Street,
Oh,
and a
thank
beautiful
you.
addition
Thank you.
to downtown. And so tell us a little bit about what y'all have going on there.
So the long story short is, so my husband is a doctor here in town, and his average patient population age is about 75 and up. And he's had a chance to get into doing some home visits. He got to visit people, especially during the COVID situation. And then one of the things that he had noticed was just how much isolation really affected the health, the well-being. There was increased episodes of depression. People weren't taking their medications. A lot of people just kind of gave up hope. Then when people were able to get back together, unfortunately, the original senior center at the administration building had burnt down. And so there was not a place for seniors just to call their own to be able to gather and have events. And so we had actually been thinking about it since September of 2020, kind of hoping somebody else would step in. And so finally, we just had to sit down with our family, and we said, this is something that God's leading us towards, and the older population has a lot of really wonderful stories to tell. They have a lot of great wisdom. They deserve to have a place of their own. Winnsboro is considered one of the best retirement communities in the area, and the last information I had was from the 2020 census that over 25% of the people that live here are 55 and above. I'm sure it's much higher now. There's so many people moving in from the city. They want this beautiful atmosphere, and so we wanted to have a place for seniors to gather. Jared's dad is going through the early stages of dementia right now, and that was kind of where our focus was, is to have the younger seniors be able to get together with the seniors that were not as independent, and just have a place for everyone to come in and share, and then also have a place where resources could be shared. There's a lot of opportunities for people to get help with utility bills, to get help with housing, help with transportation. All these different things help with healthcare, and just questions to be asked. And there's lots of resources out there, but nobody really knew that certain things were available. And so that's also what we're wanting to do, is have a place where people can come and ask questions. We had an opportunity to sit down with a woman and help her fill out her Medicare paperwork. It was her first year for Medicare. All these things that are really confusing, and it's just that was where our heart was. We just wanted to have a space where people could come and call their own.
Definitely a much-needed service in town, so thank y'all for stepping forward and providing that service.
Absolutely.
As far as revenues, how does the center
Right.
generate revenues?
Right now, it's Jared and I. We that's why we had a family meeting, as we told the kids this is where our focus needs to be right now. our children weren't born in Winnsboro, but they were all raised here. We love this town. We want to stay here, have a kind of a generational thing. And so as of right now, all of the funds have come from Jared and I, and then we have had some donations from some wonderful people around town, the American Legion. There's a couple coffee groups through churches that they've donated as well.
Okay, so it's not a sales tax generating entity at this time?
No, we're a nonprofit, so any money that we earn goes right back into helping to put on events or helping just to meet the needs of the seniors. So as far as us generating revenue, no. However, we have noticed that when people gather together, they do spend more time downtown. We've had the ladies come they like to do 42 on Tuesdays.
Right.
So they'll come and then they'll have an opportunity to shop. There's people who live out of town who don't normally come into downtown. And so that's kind of where the focus has been. They'll stay and have lunch, and that's what we're hoping is although our organization is not generating revenue per se, we're bringing more people in on a regular basis to be able to enjoy all the things that downtown has to offer.
Okay. Jim, what kind of questions do you have? Andrea?
I agree with Jan. This is a very noble individual.
Oh, thank you. No, it's our pleasure. We're so grateful to be in a position to be able to do this. Jared and I both grew up in single mom households, and so this was never even on the table. And we want to raise our kids to know that when you're blessed, then it's your responsibility to bless others.
We appreciate your phone calls, and I've seen it from the outside. I can't wait to go inside.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see it, to be honest.
Anytime. You're welcome. Anytime.
I really don't have any, to me, this is pretty self-explanatory here. And you're not asking for, to me, an overly large sum.
Yeah.
I personally think that, this is something that should be doable. Of course, it's up to the board. I just, like I said, I commend you on.
Oh, thank you.
You and your husband have on, being able and willing to do this for the senior citizens.
Thank you.
And this is a great service and all, and so I don't want to take away from that at all. But typically, our WDC dollars are not for expendable items or some of the things that are on your Amazon list and things. So my question would be, do these purchases qualify for WEDC dollars and grant dollars? Typically, it's to improve or expand a business to generate more tax revenues or grow employment and those kinds of things. Like a restaurant, we would not fund for food or expendable items that are going to be used or for anything that is not to expand their offerings and generate more tax dollars. So that would be my question for the board and for, I guess, Mackenzie as our acting WEDC director there.
So we did speak to the city attorney about this at the last meeting, just because of the unique nature of the nonprofit and then the other piece of it that are kind of the same but definitely different. And he reviewed both applications, and his advice back to us was that any sort of inventory would be ineligible as a reimbursement by EDC or for a purchase by EDC. Sometimes it's eligible if it will generate sales tax, if the inventory will generate sales tax. I don't think that'll be the case here. But he said even then, the EDC would need to be careful about the purchasing of inventory and how that would apply to other businesses who may ask for the same sort of thing. The areas that he thought may be most beneficial would be the facade grant and maybe even potentially a property tax abatement grant. But other than that, he felt like those were the only two things within the grant application that would be eligible for consideration by the WEDC.
there are some other grants that are available in town, not immediately, but I think in July or August, the Winnsboro Community Foundation opens grants for this type of nonprofit work and some of those kind of things. So you might seek out to see if there are some others that this particular portion of the request might qualify for.
Okay. And we kind of learned on our own. So I appreciate you
Yes,
giving me the
sure.
opportunity to be here
Yes.
and letting me know that there are other places to look.
So are there any questions or a motion on this portion of the application, the 2,283.57 for the educational crafts and activities information items? If not, that item will die for lack of a motion, and we will move on to the next item in her request, which is the application for incentives for Petty Holdings LLC. And I believe that actually is an investment in a building and capital improvements to a building. They've made a substantial investment in downtown and definitely has made an improvement there to that corner there. The facade improvements, if you'll look on page 32 of page 34 of the materials that are submitted, 48-10708 in facade improvements. And I know typically we like to see the request before the work is done.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
getting 3 bids from all of the local vendors so that we know there's been some competitive bids and some things there. I don't know that that's set in stone of anything we have to do, so that we could have some leeway there if the board feels that these estimates are reasonable based on their own knowledge of the cost of items there. I will make a note to the board that we do a 50% match on the first $25,000 of facade improvements for a maximum of $12,500. That is available maximum for facade grant improvements. So, are you able to locate those numbers within your materials or have any questions, Andrea?
I have no questions. Like I said, I think we have everyone all over this one.
Marcia, do you have any questions? Jim? No. Is there anything you would like to state regarding this portion of your?
Well, like I said, we definitely put the cart before the horse.
It's okay, y'all were enthusiastic.
Yes,
Let's say that.
well,
you were ready to,
and we were
get
so,
it done.
Yeah, and we were so blessed that Brenda was there to help us along. And one of the things that we wanted to do from the beginning is use all local people. And so I know
Yes.
Tillman & Sons has done a lot of other properties, a lot of other properties in downtown, and it speaks very highly to their work that they know what they're doing. One of the things that we ran into is our original idea was just to repair the plaster, but once they got up on the roof, they realized that it had disconnected from the original brickwork, and when they removed the plaster, the original brick was just too damaged to repair, and that's why we had to put on a complete new facade, which took the bid from $12,000 to $40,000.
Surprise!
Yeah, yay!
Well, it looks fabulous.
Well, thank
have
you,
a
thank you.
fabulous, fabulous facade now.
But that was one of the things that we were told early on is buying one of these historical buildings, it's like a present you didn't know you wanted, and so every time you open it, like, look what we found. So,
Well,
but
at least
yeah.
you're able to laugh about
Yeah,
it and
well,
keep a positive attitude about it.
It's a good learning experience.
Right.
But yeah, that is one of the things that when we spoke with Brenda, she said that although there's no hard and fast rules. The idea is to keep it historical, and so when we were picking out the brick, we wanted to make sure that it complemented the other areas, and then just to make sure that we were keeping it as safe, number one, keeping it safe, and number two, making sure that it would last for a long time, that we would keep the structure intact. So that's kind of how we went forward with that.
It's gorgeous. You did
Oh,
a
thank you.
fabulous job. I don't know whose idea and design it was.
It was Pete and his crew. I just kind of stood back and agreed.
If there's no other questions, is there a motion by the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the incentive application submitted by Eddie Holdings in the amount of, or not to exceed $25,000, I believe the number you quoted in.
12,500. 50% of 25,000 or more of improvements is our.
12,500 to be approved by you.
We have a motion on the floor to approve 12,500 of the facade improvement matching grants for Petty Holdings.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving that motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you so much. I
Yes.
appreciate all your time, and I know you put a lot of effort into reading all of these
Thank
papers
you.
I sent you, so
We
I appreciate that.
appreciate you. I think there was one other thing as well that you had asked, was a discussion to designate the alley as a handicap drop-off space and all,
Oh.
and that is not a
Yes.
WEDC function, but I do encourage you to get on the city council's agenda.
I spoke with I always forget his last name, Scotty, the code enforcement officer, and he said that in order to do that, I would need to talk to TxDOT first, and so we're in the process of doing that, but thank you for reminding me.
Yes, great, yes.
Just a question.
Yes.
Does the front of that have a handicap ramp?
Yes, so where you turn into the alley, there is a ramp right there. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
I just couldn't.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe you have already submitted with your application actual receipts for the renovation of the
I have the invoices and
Yes,
everything.
if we-
If you need the cancel checks, I can send that as well.
Yes, if you can get those invoices for those
Yes, ma'am.
items that were listed in your application and copies of the checks. And
Yep.
if you can then submit those to our financial secretary, Ms. Holly, and she will get that.
Okay, of course.
Funded for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, we do appreciate the wonderful service that you are providing. It is definitely a large endeavor, but I know it's also a labor of love. You can tell from your enthusiasm, and definitely as a retirement community is a much-needed service. And so thank y'all for stepping up, and if you would, express that to Dr. Petty as well, how much we appreciate y'all, your investment of your own personal resources, your own personal time, in providing this much-needed service for our community. Is there any further business to come before the board? If not, the next regular meeting of the Winnsboro Economic Development Board of Directors will be held on Tuesday, November the 22nd. All requests for it to be placed on that agenda will be completed and turned into City Hall before noon on Monday, 8 days prior to that meeting.
Jan, that particular meeting is the same week of Thanksgiving, so I didn't know if the board still wanted to meet that week or not.
Okay. I might recommend that we leave it on the agenda. If we don't have any pressing items that need our immediate attention before the end of the year, we can postpone that.
Okay.
And then the December meeting will be probably the week of Christmas. So we will see. We definitely don't want to keep people waiting for 2 or 3 months for a request, but we also want to be considerate of the board and public's time as well, so. Okay. If there is no further business to come before the board, I will call this meeting adjourned at 6:17 p.m. Do you know this still has not come up?
Don't forget to turn that back on, or you won't get anything.
That was,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, not today. I've been tied up with work. What happened?